whatever her name is. Marla. Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, that was for the article I posted for him. So
I know you like to write. I like to talk.
I was talking about
Writing.
yeah.
This is my thing.
Mm-hmm.
So here we're doing our thing on the newsstreamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast #1 Internet Singles Talk Network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
Boy, does this subject come up a lot, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't men want an independent woman? Oh, my. Somebody asked me yesterday what our subject was going to be today, and I told them, and they said, so what does that mean? I said, you get to watch the podcast.
Smart. Very smart.
They said, I'm not being as smart, because truly, you and I think about it ahead of time, but we never talk about it ahead of time, and we often don't know where our conversation is going to go, and I think that's part of the fun, and that you always get the male and female perspective because of that, too.
Absolutely. And the thing is also, the only thing that came up for me ahead of time when I was thinking about the title was, in this conversation, we're talking about them and other men, because this is not my truth.
And I have met a number of men who, the way that they voiced it, they were fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that we need to talk about is that often, period, men and women have very different definitions for things, for words and meanings, and they don't always look it up in the dictionary, which I told Barry I did, and it didn't fit today, so I decided not to do that. Because for a woman, when I listen to other women talk about that they're independent and they think men don't like that, they think that what they tell me is I speak my mind and I talk about what I want, and I don't need a man. I don't need a man. I'm very independent. I can do all these things myself. I mean, this is them talking, and they feel very firm and grounded and pretty content with this speech of theirs. And then they say, but I don't understand, because sometimes I might want a man, and I really like men. I like men, they tell me. I just don't understand why they don't like this part of me, this independent part of me. So, Barry, what do men say about that?
Oh boy, where do I begin?
Other men, general men.
Well, it's interesting because we did our show. A previous episode was about feminine versus feminist versus damsel, and between the feminist and feminine, there's an interesting overlap, or an interesting place, which is the independence, which we want to talk about. And I mentioned last week or last episode about my friend I was talking to about this thing where she talks about being an alpha feminine, which I love that term, because to me that is a way of describing independence for me. And we haven't had a concept. We keep saying we're going to have another conversation, she and I, probably later in the month. But I want to check in with her about how she's been received by men, because this topic seems to fit that, because that is the thing that happens. And the reason why I say it this way is because I do know quite a lot of independent women, in the terms we're using here. Not like independent, but they don't want anything or anybody whatsoever. They're not like on an island away from everything. We're not talking about that. But a woman that basically does her life her own way and is independent of the needs of others pulling on her, because she doesn't need any of that. At the same time, those independent women would love to be in a relationship, most of them, all of them probably, would love to be in a relationship with a man who honors that. So this is where we're talking about the perspective where men who don't honor that is the challenge. And I think for a lot of men, and I'm just thinking it's true for me back in the day, because I've evolved quite a bit. But the thing for me is that for a lot of men, the idea of being with a woman who's independent means they don't have dominion, don't have control, don't have, I would dare to say, even loyalty. Is they're afraid of the fact that she might walk away. Now, I'm just saying it's carte blanche to start with, but for a lot of men, there is a very, very old archetype in their brain, somewhere back in the reptilian brain, that basically says, I need to run the house, take care of everything, and she needs to be subordinate to me. which doesn't necessarily play out in reality, but it's in there somewhere for some men. So they have this almost unconscious resistance to having a relationship with an independent woman. So just a couple of things to start with.
Mm-hmm. I think the archetypes that, especially since the 60s, but even before that, women especially have pushed back saying, we don't want to be controlled. We don't want to have you be overbearing. We don't want to not have any say-so or any power over ourselves, certainly. And if we're in a relationship, we want to have a partnership. We want to have a way that we're both contributing and both of our opinions are just as important. And yet, because it was for a very long time that it was the other way, I think it is a challenge to not have both sides have prickly places about it and tender places and unrealistic, irrational places.
Well, the thing, yeah, absolutely. And on that same note, for men who are evolving and growing to be comfortable with a woman who's independent, the challenge of, or I should say, the uncertainty of not stepping on toes by thinking we shouldn't do something for them because they're independent, or we do things that we care and then be told off because we stepped on their toes. That's a real challenge for us too as men. So just to be in defense of men, independent women in some ways aren't necessarily as practiced about how to be in a relationship with a man whilst they're being independent. No, it's healthy. So we're not sure how to navigate that either.
Boy, is that the truth. So it was one really big extreme, and then I did my little soapbox a few weeks ago about the other extreme, and we're all sort of trying to figure out where's our personal middle, what would help me feel the best in my life, both men and women, and then how could we find out some sort of a middle. It's not the exact middle, but it's our personal middle that's close enough to each other. We find somebody that's close enough that we can continue navigating this challenge, because it is a challenge for both sides.
Right.
So the thing that's really important for the female side, I think, is to get really clear about what are the parts that you really like having autonomy about. What is necessary in your life to have your own checking account? You want to stay living in your house, even if you're in a relationship. You want to still go off on some vacations with your girlfriends. I mean, really figure out what are the things that are essential for you. And then what are the things that you could see that maybe you've experienced a little, or you've experienced the opposite, what would you like instead? Or you see it in other people's relationship, where you see there's this symbiotic thing that happens in partnership and cooperation if it's the right person for you.
Yeah.
That you don't want to be autonomous. You want to figure out how when we go back to the tango, how there's such a magic of where you have two people, because you can't really do it by yourself. You have the give and take and the support and the pressure and the good in all good ways.
Yeah.
So I think for women, it's essential that we have that conversation with ourselves or somebody like you or I to help us get really clear about, most people, I've never thought about it that way. Wow. I said, because when you have that conversation with yourself, you will feel even more empowered. It's such a powerful conversation. I know you know that too.
Absolutely. And it was the journey I went through myself, because I mean, it's funny because I look back now and realize that what I was looking for and what I was attracting wasn't necessarily an independent woman. It was a woman who basically was in dominance, which is unfortunately where some of those two get conflated. And so the thing that I want to make sure we discuss in this conversation is there are some women who basically wanted to dominate their field and dominate the way they're doing work. And so they would be in charge and basically be more in machismo rather than being independence. And so dating for me back that era, which was definitely a bygone era for me now, thank God, was a very educational one, but also very uncomfortable, because it wasn't done in a place from real autonomy or respect for each other. And so the independent woman is a woman, I would suggest, in terms of labeling, is one who has a life together, is doing things she wants to do, and has a way of doing her life with her friends and travel and everything else. And also does not exclude being in a relationship. Has to be with a man who understands what he's getting in the package, so to speak, is all of that stuff that goes with it, that she's independent about. And some of the things may change, where she might say, you know what, I want to be in a relationship and I want him to go with me on those trips.
Mm-hmm.
That's where she wants to go on her own. But a lot of other things, she'll have her own space. And frankly, if you're in a relationship, man or woman, with a partner, ideally you respect their choice. They want to go out with their same-sex friends to go out and play and have fun, do those sort of things, because it frankly it brings them back to you more energized and more attractive. So that freedom that she wants in this conversation and wants to be independent is something that any smart man would honor and respect, and knows he's getting the best end of the bargain, so to speak, by having her that way and being free to be herself, because she'll be more comfortable with him, rather than being the damsel like we talked about the other week, about being so hanging onto his coattails and dragging him down. He would be so frustrated because it'd be like baggage. So the independent woman who can bring herself to him in her own choice and can meet him where he is, frankly, for most men who get it, it's a gift.
It is a gift.
Yes.
And to have the man as well say, what are the things that I need to do independently? What are the things, the way I re-regulate myself when I get out of regulation, because I'm not had something hard at work, or I've had a hard conversation with you, and what do I need so that I can now explain to the person I'm thinking about being in a relationship with, this is how I regulate myself.
Right.
So we talk about the independent things, and then we talk about, because we will in the future, the interdependent parts, where what is the benefit about including another person really intimately, not just sexually, but access to your heart, access to all those buttons that they could push that make you feel good and make you feel sad and make you feel upset, that you're allowing somebody that who is that person, and what ways works best for you. So that if both people have had this conversation with themselves, or somebody's helped them, and then they are equipped to have this conversation with the other person, then the man could often say, I really like being helpful. I thrive on doing things with my hands, or I like making the plans, or I like being the strong person when we're having to get something fixed or something, whatever it is, that it's his thing. That as a woman who, I was single for a very long time between my marriages, it was so nice to have somebody who went, oh yeah, I got that. I like doing that. And I'd been perfectly capable of doing it for a long time. And because I was really secure in the things I was doing already, that these other things, I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful to get rid of them. And I think so often women have either had men that didn't do it right, they didn't do it well, or they felt like they got bullied. And now they don't even know how to have a conversation with a man who really has his act together and says, geez, what men tell me all the time is, I don't know what my job is, with lots of the women that I date, because they're explaining to me, they know how to do plumbing and fix their car. And I'm like, okay, great. And where's my place? What is it that you would need me for? Because I like feeling needed. That's a really part of my DNA. And I think that that's the part where women misunderstand men who really are very secure and masculine men. Women don't know how to navigate that. And so I think helping women ask the right questions and men ask the right questions and answer the right questions, I think that's a lot of what we're going to help with today, because they're out to lunch, both sides equally.
This is why we're having the conversation. Absolutely. And it's so true. One of the things I would say to that is there's a difference between saying you can do it and saying you want to do it. And so in the context of saying that, for women who are so, I was going to say attached, but they're so determined to prove their independence, to show themselves to be fully fleshed out, taking care of themselves, do what they want to do, that they want to allow a man to do things for them, not because they want to do these things, just they have to do them to keep proving themselves. And it's like when they find a man they can trust, and trust is going to be a big piece of the conversation, I know, is when a man is trustworthy enough that, ladies, you can let him do the things that you just don't want to do, or things that he can do, dare I say, better, or at least more efficiently, because you don't want to put the effort into it, or simply wants to do them so you can do something else. Those are gifts you can take in when you're willing to trust. And that trust is key, but an independent woman especially, because sometimes when women, another big part of this conversation, a lot of women have gotten independent because it was the only way they felt they could trust themselves. Because when in relationships in the past, like you were saying earlier, where they felt like the guy was in control or was running things and they didn't have freedom to do what they want to do, And so to have them be free to be themselves, they feel like there's a price to pay, which is going to be so independent and so uncharged and so getting things done of their own. They don't allow space, and they have no room to let them manage their lives.
Oh. Yeah, sad, because it's wearing us out, us women.
Yeah.
It's wearing us out. So, boy, the two sides of that coin is trust and allow. Because am I going to allow somebody to do something really important to me? Not if I don't trust them yet.
Right.
I need to do little things. And women don't always even allow the little things, because that's the thing that men are happy to step up and do a little thing. They don't want to do the little thing. That's not their want. Their want is pleasing us and proving I'm here. I said I want to do stuff. There you go. I want to do stuff that makes you happy. I'll do that thing. I'll take out the trash. You know, if it makes you happy, but you need to say, this is going to make me happy, and I'll be really glad you did it. And boy, it really takes a big burden off of me. And when we're like, oh my God, I don't want to say all that, but it works really well. It works really well. And that way he gets to build up the trust that's really important to him, that you trust him. And then you'll start allowing him to do more things. And I had this really interesting thing happen the other day. I met a new guy for the first time, and he walks with a cane. And I didn't know that when we were going to meet. But he's really nice and I like him. And so I didn't ask, but he explained. I was going to eventually, but he explained. He was born with polio, and he went through all this interesting stuff in his life. So he's had a cane since he was in junior high school. He played sports. I mean, he's a really active, athletic guy. So when we went to leave, you know me, I always step aside and let a man open the door for me. And I didn't even give it a second thought about how's he going to open the door for me. He just pushed it open. I was like, and I'm glad that I've trained myself enough that I didn't think, should I ask him? Should I do it myself? I didn't do any of that, because before I trained myself, I might have.
Right.
But I just trust he's going to tell me if he can't open the door. He opened the door. So that was a really fun, like, oh, look at me. I'm walking my talk. I love walking my talk.
It's nice to know you're a product of the product, so to speak.
We got to live what we're talking about, or people aren't going to trust us. So to allow men, ladies, to allow men to do things for us that we really would like them to do, and then see, how do you do it? And if you need it different, you could say, gosh, thanks for doing it. Would you do it this way next time? And then build up a trust that he really does want to help you. He wants to help you. He doesn't want to necessarily do the dishes. He really wants to help you. If doing the dishes helps, he wants to help you. Right. So expressing, I would like this. This would relieve me from something hard. This would give me peace of mind. Oh my God, I hate doing that. And I'm so grateful somebody else wants to do it. Even you're like a brother or a colleague or something that happens to be a Y chromosome person, because it'll help you practice as a woman, learning how to ask. Just ask. Because we women hate asking. We think everybody should be able to read our minds in the first place. And we think it doesn't mean as much if we have to ask. That if somebody figures it out all by themselves, you get like extra points in our brain, which is really sad, because I said, I feel like, Dr. Phil, how's that working for you? Or how many things are you getting that you really want if you don't ask?
Right.
It's so crazy, Megan.
It's interesting also that there's another part of that, which is how willing are they to receive? This thing about independence oftentimes is because it's been hard won. For a lot of women, their independence has been something they really strive for and really achieved. And so if they let somebody do something for them, if they are opening up to receive, it feels like they're undermining their own hard-earned victory, so to speak. So this dance of trust and allowing and receiving is really part of the challenge about how to be independent, at the same time be allowing for somebody else to do something for you. That's where the big work is. And
how ultimately I've personally learned and watched my clients grow through this, ultimately makes us stronger. Yeah. Because for some reason we bought this bill of goods that it'll make us weaker, because maybe we've turned things over to men that were overbearing, or we couldn't count on. There's so many men that would really do a good job if we'd let them. What an interesting note to leave on when we're going to go to a commercial, and we'll come right back, right?
Perfect hook to lead people over the edge past the break to our next part of the story.
To be continued.
We'll see you in a minute.
Okay. Hi, we're back with Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. And today we're talking about why don't men want an independent woman? Ooh, it's such a mouthful.
Indeed.
So we left for commercial with how challenging, really, for real reasons, it is for women to ask for help and to allow a man, even sometimes another woman, but even a man, certainly a man, to help. Because we've been let down, we've been betrayed, there's been strings attached. But what I say is, we're going to help you have a better picker. So you're not going to pick men that do that, and you can ask them and they'll be trustworthy, right?
Absolutely. And the thing is, especially for independent women in this conversation, it's hard. It's almost, for what shows up for me is that feeling like they simply are not willing to choose down from where they are. Like again said earlier in the conversation about women really fought hard and really worked to have that independence. And so there's no desire to meet a man who's going to either undercut them or where they're going to give up something to be with him. So part of the challenge in this work is that women need to hold the standards so that the men they attract can meet them where they are and honor them where they are, so they don't undermine them. And for men, part of it's to raise their own standards, because some men have been settling for less for a long time, but also men haven't been willing to do the work to themselves be independent enough not to need a partner who's going to be always in their face sort of thing. And I did that too much in the old days, so I know how painful that is. But learning how to be independent ourselves, because and we'll talk about it in another episode. No, we're talking about the difference between independence and interdependence. Is the independent woman is not immune or unavailable to anything. It's more that she has really fought to be herself and owns her own space and is really her own woman, so to speak. And so that when she's around a man, she doesn't want to lose any of that.
And what I found personally was it enhanced it.
Indeed.
I mean, my late husband was my biggest cheerleader about my work. Anything I wanted to do, he wanted to tell everybody about it. And he would, share the things that I was talking about with my clients. And it was really fun. I'd not experienced that before with a husband, because my first husband, it wasn't our dance. And so that was really amazing, because it made me feel even more empowered. And the glorious other side of that was I got to do the same thing for him.
Yep.
And then we could each be our I need you self as well. I appreciate you telling me I'm this big, powerful, wonderful woman. I'm running a company, and then I could just go home and just fall in his arms, and he'd run a bath for me, or he'd rub my feet, or let me just go on and on about a really hard thing and not learn to not interrupt me. I mean, that's so valuable. And both things were so deep and rich for me, because I had not had that in all one person before, ever. And I knew that I really worked for it, and then I had to keep allowing it. That was the thing. But that poor guy. I mean, I just tested him for such a long time to keep verifying, okay, are you going to be okay with this about me? And I'm going to show you this part about me. And what do you think about that? And what if I do have a weak day? And it was so amazing, because we had both done so much work ahead of time that what we were capable of doing and slogging through when the hard things happened. So I think that's the key, that if both people have done growth, and then you get to have exercise this really new muscle, because even though I practiced over there, I hadn't done it in here with a person before.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing I love about that is being independent doesn't make you immune to asking for help. And that's what you demonstrated with your husband. It was so clear, is that there's such a gift in being able to let down the walls down and just collapse into your partner's arms without giving up any of the independence. And in fact, it's almost a way that it shows that you have that freedom, because the independence isn't some controlled, contained box you live in. It's just a part of your aspect of who you are, but you also get to play another area, which is in safety and comfort with your partner. Again, back to the trust thing we talked about earlier. So for men, again, why men don't want independent women is I think a lot of cases for men, they don't have a woman who's so aloof and so independent, there's no way in. So part of it, speaking for men in this case, is they want to be a woman who will find that the man provides something for them they really want to be with and have, without violating or diminishing their own independence.
Yeah.
And so when a woman really shares that with a man, that her independence doesn't block her from being a loving partner and all the wonderful things she can be, and yes, sometimes in need of him, and he can provide that without diminishing or taking away from her independence, that's a healthier relationship.
I found that it made the independent part of me even more solid when I was out, because it was like it helped balance both sides of me.
There we go. Yeah.
And it balanced him because he could be out in the world being, his business person, but then he could come home and be this really caring, loving husband person, which was a whole nother side for him. And then he could also learn with me, because we both had to learn from our past things. He could be so vulnerable with me too. I could be really vulnerable with him, and he could be very vulnerable with me. And it's an honor. It's an honor. And I think it's really what you have said, that from a woman's point of view, that I need to, and I learn when I'm first meeting somebody new, I'm warm and I'm friendly. This is who I am. And I'm reserved, considering how much I can be unreserved in my life. And I really I do little tests to see, is that part of me safe? Or are they going to honor that part? Will they take advantage of that part? And that's been really an interesting dance throughout both times dated before Tony and now dating after. I do it again. It's just how I process dating. And one of the things is, how vulnerable can I be? How vulnerable can I be? And are they strong enough to hold that? Because I need that. As independent as I am, I need strength to hold the vulnerable side of me, and also that they'll be fine with it. Okay enough, at least. That's been an interesting dance from my point of view as a woman. Absolutely.
And the way you're doing it also is still in integrity and in alignment. So there's not any sense of like you're changing who you are to fit a paradigm. If anything, you're reinforcing who you are inside that paradigm. So when you're out dating, you're out meeting somebody, they get to see the real you.
But not all. They don't get all right.
Yeah, no, sorry. You get to see the real you you're willing to present. The rest of it's hidden for later possibility of exploration.
But they're never surprised that I'm different than I showed. They're always surprised there's so much more.
Yes.
That's what I keep hearing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I've really relished when I found that with men. Men are much more, this is who I am. Mm-hmm. And then it's really fun to find, they hadn't ever explored that layer. They hadn't ever really shared it with anybody. They were kind of knew it was there. And that's a really fun thing to happen too, I think. And it makes me feel even more open about sharing more layers about me.
That's the thing. It's a dance that, like tango, is the dance of moving forward with each other. So there's a definite benefit of doing that. So that's a real great gift to have.
And I think starting as an independent woman, in that I pay my own bills and I get my house fixed if I need to, that I'm very capable of all that. Mm-hmm. And I've experienced that I got the balance, that I now know I can do that again. Because I wondered, after I was single for 20 whole years between my marriages, and I was in a couple long relationships, but I'd never done that much being all of me. Some of it I was like, oh, look there's even more of me that I didn't even know about. So that was the thing that showed me that my way of being independent can still be very relaxed and allowing and open, and need other people, need men, need a man that's the right one for me. How much better I am, even better I'm pretty darn good, but even better, which is why I look to do that again, because in a partnership, I know what blossoms even more in me, even with the hard stuff, because there's always hard stuff. Everybody goes, oh, there's hard stuff. I go, well, yeah, it's two people with other stuff. And certainly this age, we got lots of stuff. I wouldn't miss it. I wouldn't miss the growing and the sharing for me personally. And now fun to watch another person too.
Absolutely. And the recognition, again, said it before, I said it again, is the recognition that the independence is not lost by being in a relationship, is additive. And the thing is that, yes, there are going to be obstacles and challenges in the relationship, but choosing to be in the relationship consciously, both partners, both men and women in this context, and having both of them have the independent part of themselves that still thrives and grows and does great things in the world, but also has this wonderful place to play together where it's one supports the other or one needs something from the other, whatever, however the dance goes on, so that you get to have this spectrum, because we are definitely not single note people. We have multiple aspects and multiple facets. So this independent label is not a global label for each of us. It's just it's one of the things that we bring to the table. It's one of our strengths, but there's a lot more to the picture than just that. And so the gifts that we bring to each other are so much more, like you were saying, there's so much more to us than we first thought. That's the wonder of this work.
And then be clear about, there are things that'll be different. There'll be things that you'll change. I didn't feel like I sacrificed. I didn't feel like I settled. Those are very hard words for people, and I wouldn't suggest it at all. And I might have told this story before. I recently told this to a client, though, because we were having this conversation. She ended up calling because of the podcast we did about femininity. She says, I think I'm the two extremes. I want to figure out the middle. It was really sweet. That I'd been single, as I said, for 20 years before I married Tony, and we got married in June. And it was December, and my birthday's in December, and I love Christmas. I love going to the malls. I don't mind the crowds. I like the music and the decorations, and I like the hubbub. It's just, I love cruising the mall in the middle of Christmas. It's just fun for me, and I'll do it a couple times, even if I'm not buying anything. I just think it's fun. I buy a bag of popcorn and I walk around. So I'm out today shopping, and not, buying or whatever. And my phone rings, and I see it's Tony, and I go, hi, hun. And he goes, are you coming home? And I said, why? And he goes, it's 8:30. I went, oh. I didn't even think about that. First, I didn't even think about, I had no idea what time it was. Wow. And oh my God, there's somebody who cares that I'm not coming, that I didn't come home, and I could be dead on the freeway. I said, I am so sorry. I'm not in the habit yet. I'm going to get in the habit, because it's really sweet of you to, and he wasn't mad. He goes, I was a little concerned, but I figured you were out. But I just went to check in, because he and Breed already had dinner and everything. I said, I like that. So I don't feel like it took anything away from me. I like that he cared. I like that he called. And I, from then on, kept track of the time whenever I was doing something. And I would, because that's only considerate, I would expect him to do the same thing. But other people could get, oh my God, he's trying to hem me in. He's trying to keep track of me. And it wasn't any of that. It was exactly what I needed and wanted. And I went, wow, I like this. And it didn't make me feel any less independent. It made me feel really married, which I liked.
Well, that's the gift of this, is there's such a relish, and there's such a warmth of experience of knowing that there's somebody there for you, who's in your corner. Because the other thing about being independent is it's nice to have someone supporting you.
Yeah.
And so, because there is, unfortunately, the thought about being independent means there's going to be nobody around you. You can't get anything done. It's like, no, a lot of times independent people have massive teams, whether it's in business or in social support. And so being in a relationship with a partner who understands your independence as a gift and as something they want to support, and you get to lean back into that. You were saying, like, someone to lean into, and they can just hold you. It's one of the magical gifts. And I guess I want to go back to one second about what we started with, about why men don't want to be with an independent woman. One of the things I think is because, frankly, I don't think men oftentimes are capable of embracing the full expanse that a woman can be. So she'd be independent over here, but being needy over here, and be something else in between, and all these different things. Some men, frankly, aren't up for the work, or the discovery, or the willingness to play, and so they're missing out, to be blunt.
And we could teach them. We could teach the men how to do that if they really want to learn, if they think that's a high priority, that it would help them find a quality woman.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with the women who are like, oh, I have to do everything all by myself all the time. No. To figure out, as I learned, so happy, how to not do it that way anymore. Because I had done it that way a really long time. And it was okay. And then it wasn't. And then I figured out how to stop doing it. And it was way better. Way better. But how do you know until you've experienced it, especially if you've only experienced it the other way? So Barry and I are here to tell you they're out there. There's
Absolutely.
not just us, they're out there. So if this isn't who you're meeting, if that's not what's happening, then what you do is you come and figure out, what is it about you that's not working for that? How can the men learn how to be with a more independent woman and seek out ones that aren't going to be ball busters, and women how to give in and receive and vet a man that could really have your back and help you and do things in a way that take the burden off, take the work off, take the labor off. I mean, really, there are so many men ready, willing, and able to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a way, to be honest, that title isn't necessarily global. It can be misleading to think like all men don't want to be with an independent woman. It's like, no, we're talking about basically the men that aren't. Because frankly, yes, there are plenty of men who are up for this, who are ready to do this, who are willing to work. And a lot of women who really who have perhaps fought for, but certainly grown in their independence, who don't want to settle into being codependent and needy again. They want to have that relationship that is meeting where they are in their level of authority and autonomy. And I mean, these are the women I love working with as well in my work, but also the men who want to grow into that place as well, because this is, I believe, where relationships are supposed to head anyway, because we've evolved. We talked about a few weeks ago in talked about the evolution of relationship and the paradigm, and we're still evolving. Where we are now is not where the relationship paradigm was 20 years ago or 40 years ago. So this conversation about independence for both men and for women, and how men can be with a woman who's independent, is part of the growth and evolution of what relationships are becoming nowadays, because, well, they weren't like that 50, 60 years ago. So this is exciting because it's an evolving experience, and it's a growing experience for all of us. And I love that people are starting to grab hold of this and saying, yes, this is what we want. This is what we want to play. This is how we want to grow. Because this is the joy of what relationships can be like.
In the midst of our really kind of crazy making world, because there's lots of crazy making things, this is the thing that when I need a break and go, look at this opportunity, look at how many people you and I get to talk to who want to go, yeah, could I learn this differently? I'd really like this. And I really think it's kind of this nice little grassroots thing that if people could just get happier with themselves and a happier relationship with all the people in your life, your relatives, your colleagues, and a love, then it pushes back on the chaos that's outside. It doesn't necessarily change it. It will help our reaction. Because I think when we're too isolated, I mean, I just read, I should send it to you. It's the really great article about loneliness and how it all happened and why it happened. And when we feel so isolated, then we feel even more, there's nobody. There's only crappy people. That when we meet somebody of our own level, our own growth work, working hard at that, I think it's certainly for me, it gives me more hope, more energy, more stamina, more optimism for even more outside stuff. And I think this is a big topic because people need other people. I mean, we're pack groups. There's never a time in history when we didn't do a bunch of stuff together. We cooked together, we fought together, the guys went up and fought, the ladies, would make clothes and food, and they'd go out, everybody go out and gather and catch horses. And you did it in a group. There was not all this independence where we sit in our house and maybe talk on a computer or talk on our phone. It's hard. It's really hard. So learning how to be with people in this more symbiotic way, I think this is so the beginning of that. What do you think, Barry?
I firmly believe so, that there's something that I think people are yet to discover about the freedom we have now and the way we can be ourselves. And the challenge is, in some ways, yes, with the craziness going on now, it's really easy to get swayed by the news, social media, everything else. So sometimes we lose track of who we are and who we are in our own independence and our own strength. And so to really own that truth of ourselves, to be independent, to be fully capable of doing anything we want to do and being comfortable in that, allows us to detach from all that input and look at it as being just something we can dip into if we want to. We don't have to. And that's part of this journey. I mean, that's not talking about a romantic relationship necessarily, but just about how the power of that comes up. The thing is that we've definitely moved out of the codependent paradigm, and now we're in the independent cycle, so to speak. And for men and for women especially, because men have sort of had that for a bit longer, it seems like, because men just did their own thing anyway. But women are now finding their way to do their own thing as well. And it's like meeting, like now coming together again and meeting back together from both independent status is a much healthier place to be, because we're not ideally, keyword ideally, dragging our old stuff with us, our old baggage and old things together. We meet each other. We've done our own work. Like you're saying with you and Tony, it's like we've done our own work beforehand. And independence in that place, because there are people independent because they want to avoid everything, which we're not getting to right now. But independence, where you've done that work, makes you a much healthier person to be around. And you tend to attract a lot of people who are interested in you because of that joy. But the thing is, you've then got to be more selective about who you choose to be with, because you've got to watch what they bring to the table and how they treat your independence. It's almost like when you're fully owning your independence as a woman, it's almost like having a pet that you got to watch how other people treat it. You know, I don't play down to it, but the idea being that your independence is part of one of your skills, and so if they don't treat it with respect, that's very telling. So for women, especially, well, if it fits for me, it's like, so yeah, absolutely, because there is that sense that women who've really claimed and owned their independence, is like they've got the golden chalice, and they don't want someone taken away from them. And so a man's got to be there to honor and respect that in that place and still be himself. So that can be, again, to a healthy partnership, because that's the shift for men to grow out of the old paradigm where they're going to be the one in charge of running the show, like I said earlier. So this conversation, we're not going to be done in this show alone. There's more to talk about, obviously, but this is the starting point about recognizing that being independent, first of all, doesn't mean you're exclusive from relationship. It also means that you don't have to give something up to be in a relationship. It's about how do you live your independence and have a relationship side by side. And that's the work.
And it circles back to what I felt for me was being an independent woman who was now in this really good relationship. I got to be even more of my femininity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he got to be even more of his masculinity.
Mm-hmm. That's the gift. That's the joy and the secret.
It is the secret. That's a different kind of secret, right, than the one that they had the movie about.
Yes, it is indeed.
So gosh, if any of this has resonated with you, if you're struggling with how to feel yourself and not feel like you're giving anything up, either a man or a woman in a relationship, but you really want to be in a relationship and you haven't figured out how to do that, oh, Barry and I would be so happy to talk to you about that, because we've been on this journey ourselves and
got a while.
Yes, and have seen for us and for our clients the glory and the peace that can come from finding the middle, because you have to do the extremes, and then where's our personal middle and where's the other person's personal middle, and are our middles compatible? It's really important to find out.
Yes, indeed.
So if you'd like to talk to me, you can find me through my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. And if you scroll down a little ways, you'll see What's Holding You Back questionnaire. Click on that. There's just a few brief questions about where you are and where you'd like to be. And then you'll get access to my calendar to make a complimentary conversation with me. You can also join my mailing list, and then you'll get repeats of this podcast and stay up on the news about what I'm doing. And you can also scroll to the bottom of that first page and click on all my social media, which is Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and Pinterest. You can also send me a personal email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com and tell them how to reach you, Barry.
Certainly. I didn't have to give you any prompt. That was great.
I've been practicing.
You have been practicing.
But I've been so dependent on you in the past and appreciated you helping me practice.
Absolutely. Now you're independent.
Yes, now I'm independent. About my social media.
Had to play with that. So So if you want to reach out to me, same as Christine, I have a website and other things too. My website is my name, which is barryselby.com. On the homepage of the website, there is a link to have a chat with me. Say, let's chat near the top of the screen. And the same way, I have a form you fill out, which has some questions, and I have answers, so I know what you're looking for and where you are. And then you get on my calendar, we can have a 20-minute conversation. My gift to you, that really will help you navigate where you are and where you want to go. At the bottom of the screen is a link to join my email list, or I should say a box to fill out to join my email list. And in the middle of the screen, if you want to do this, because as part of my work is helping my clients to become better partners, to attract better partners, I have a quiz, which is a relationship readiness assessment. And it's on the home screen, or you can go to barryselby.com/quiz. And that quiz is about 30 plus questions that will really ask you for deeper perspective on where you are on those spectrums, or where you are on those answers for those questions. And it will give you a little tally sheet at the end with some ideas and some thoughts, and a link to have a discovery session with me as well. Again, on my website, there is all social media is at the bottom, but if you want to look for my social media everywhere, is my name, Barry Selby, on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, X, and on Pinterest, and on Instagram, and Threads is the real Barry Selby, because that account got changed. But basically, find me everywhere, same as Christine, and we're here to help you.
And your email address is?
Oh yes, my email address is barry@barryselby.com. Thank you for that reminder. So
See,
reach
I
out
love
to me.
you need it too. It's so
See?
cool.
Perfect.
And we do this live podcast every Thursday at 1 o'clock Western time and 4 o'clock Eastern time, and all the times in between. And we'd love for you to watch it live. You can share any questions or concerns you have, or if you watch it on Roku or Apple TV, we'd love for you to like and subscribe and share it with your friends, and ask us questions that you'd like us to cover in subjects in the future. And you can also take us with you, huh, Barry?
Absolutely, because we now have it as a podcast format, so you can listen to it on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or on Amazon Podcasts. You can listen to us everywhere you go. The great thing is with the audio, you can listen to it when you're anywhere in the world. So you can be in a meeting. No, sorry, I shouldn't say that. When you're not in a meeting, that's distracting you. That was interesting. That came out that way. No, but if you're at the gym, or if you're on the train, or if you're driving somewhere, you can listen to it in audio, because the audio will keep playing. And it's great if you're hiking. I go hiking in the mornings. If you go hiking or do some exercise, go walks in nature, having a little educational input in your ear is kind of a good thing to have. So let's do us on the podcast.
I love that. Yes, we always see pictures on Facebook of your beautiful morning walks with all the cute critters you come in contact with.
Indeed.
So we will be back again next week with another scintillating subject about dating and relationships.
We will indeed. We'll see you then.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.